welcome to the VST Roundup. We are running through this season. It's already week 6, and we had a slate of action that was a little bit all over. A couple surprises and at least one nail biter. And we'll get right into that. But joining me, as always, are Kaylie, Harden, and Kenny Hodges. You guys, I'm excited for this. How are you guys feeling?
I think things really shook up this week. I mean, there were some things that happened the way that we expected them to, but especially with that Cleveland Taft game that we're about to hear about.
Yeah, man, it was a great week. I mean, there was some surprises. There were some things that we thought might go one way, went a different way. And there was some drama that we're gonna get into in more ways than one. So, man, I'm ready. Let's jump right into it.
All right, let's roll. And so we'll start with the Valley Mission. There were no close games in that league. Kennedy was on their bye. Silmar hosted Canoga, and that was a 44-0 game. We've gone over this with Canoga, and Silmar did what they were supposed to do. San Fernando went into Van Nuys, and that was 48-0. Another one of those where Van Nuys is coming up. They're putting pieces together, but they're not quite there against the top of the Valley Mission. And San Fernando did what they were supposed to do. And Panorama was at Reseda and was a 60-28 final there. This one actually, believe it or not, was one score at near the end of the first half. And Panorama just took over and tired them out. Knowing the way Panorama does it, they most likely just ran the ball and got that defense exhausted. And the second half, there were no legs. When there's no legs, you're going to get beat. And over in the East Valley, our little engine that Kenny and I were calling them, Pauly was at Arleta, and Arleta kept their stranglehold on the East Valley League with a 28-14 victory there. And our first surprise, Monroe and Chavez. Monroe came out on top. It was a 13-10 final. That one came down to the very end, and it was interesting how it wrapped up. And the last one we had in the East Valley, Grant went into Verdugo Hills and was unable to seal the deal at the end. Verdugo Hills held on for the win, 17-14. This game, if you want to read more about it, the article is up on our website. It was a bit of a sloppy game. Both teams kind of having trouble taking care of the football. But Verdugo's defense held when they were supposed to, and they prevailed, kind of righting their ship a little bit in the East Valley. Over in the West Valley League, you had homecoming for El Camino, and it was a happy homecoming at the end. This one also's got some storyline to it. Chatsworth made a game of it. El Camino held on at the very, very end. It was 28-27 El Camino. Cleveland and Taft. This one at Taft turned into a bit of a grudge match as things go. It was a 40-28 final. Cleveland seemed unstoppable at times in this game. Kenny will go into that one in depth. He was there. And our VST game of the week was Birmingham at Granada. And Birmingham's keeping everybody on notice that they are still the team to beat in the West Valley and the city at that matter. It was a 31-0 final. Kaylie was there, and she'll have more on this. And from what I understand, it was a close game until sometime in the second half when Birmingham pulled away. On that, I'm going to let Kenny jump in with some of his thoughts throughout the Valley, and we'll jump after. Kenny.
Well, let's jump right in news and notes. We'll start back in the East Valley. Again, some of the intrigue coming into this week is we had a couple of teams kind of sitting pretty in the top of the East Valley, and we wanted to see more from them, see if it was fool's gold. Not sure if I'm ready to call it fool's gold, but Poly went on the road, lost to a really, really tough Arleta team, a team that might be headed for D1 depending on how the rest of this season plays out. They put up a valiant effort, but Arleta was just too much to kind of handle for them. And Monroe and Chavez, what can you say? Chavez is a team that's young. They're figuring it out. They're learning. And sometimes when you're in learning, one of the biggest lessons you learn is that you can't take any game for granted. You go into a Monroe team that hadn't won a game this year, but it was their senior night. And no seniors came and they gave their best effort. They didn't want to leave their last home game in defeat, and they gave their best effort, and Chavez got caught, and they slipped up. The difference in the game ended up being off of a fumble deep in Monroe's territory, an 80-yard bomb the other way, and all she wrote. Chavez will probably be better for this. We'll see if they can bounce back next week. Grant and Verdugo Hills. Verdugo Hills pulled out a tough win. It was a game that they needed to kind of get right the ship after the last few weeks. But keep an eye on Franco Cecili's bunch at Grant. There's been some frustration this year with how young his roster has been and him wanting them to play better. The last couple of weeks, you're starting to see them put together some better efforts. Now, is it always going to result in wins? No, because it's a young team still figuring it out. But keep an eye on that bunch. They might be able to pull off a surprise or two before we get to the end of the season. Now, moving over to the Valley Mission, like Arshavir said, the story is 3 games, 3 blowouts, 3 wins by San Fernando, Panorama, and Sylmar by an average of 41 points this week. If you look at the Valley Mission 3 weeks in, you can kind of see there's sort of a line of demarcation in terms of the teams who can kind of compete and maybe have postseason aspirations, and the 3 teams in Canoga, Van Nuys, and Reseda that are building programs. They're trending up. They're looking in the right direction. Canoga's got Canoga needs some time to kind of get their numbers back because they lost a lot last year. But we commend those teams for lacing up every week and going and giving it a fight. And the West Valley, Chatsworth and Elko. We're gonna get into that game. I went back and I watched that LA 36 broadcast, and woo boy, we're gonna talk about the ending of that game and what may or may not have could have transpired. Same thing, Birmingham and Granada. Kaylie's going to give you guys the 4-1 on all of that. All I'll tell you is this: my only note from this game, and we'll get into it. Birmingham is still the kings of the city, but Birmingham also might be deeper than we may have thought they were at certain positions. We'll get into that. And as far as the other game in the West Valley, Cleveland and Taft, the good old-fashioned slugfest, a good old-fashioned shootout. Both teams put up a lot of points. There was a lot of highlights. But the story of this game might be what sort of transpired before the game and what it could mean for the rest of the season in terms of what we have in terms of in the West Valley. In the Southern section, there's not much to talk about in the Southern section. This is a week our Valley teams probably want to forget. We went of a collective 4-9 in terms of the games that were played by teams that are sort of represented on the Valley side of the Southern section. But congratulations to Burroughs. They put a big effort together against Pasadena, a 62-point shutout. Harvard Westlake put up a W against LaSalle. Sierra Canyon in a big matchup in the Southern section where we wanted to see what Notre Dame could do against this very, very stout Sierra Canyon team. They looked the part. Notre Dame is a tough bunch. Steele Bozzella is the real deal at quarterback, but what can you say about Sierra Canyon? They're going to do that to a lot of folks this year. And also, again, a team that I've been shouting out because they're a little engine that could out in the southern section up in Calabasas at Viewpoint. They put together another game, another victory, 12-0 over Artesia. We'll see what they can do if they can progress and get to the postseason. Those are my news and notes around the valley.
All right. And it was, as you went through, very, very interesting week. We're going to kick it right back to you, Kenny, because this Cleveland Taft game had subplot after subplot, and the gamesmanship started early. I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, for sure. So the game I was at this week was Cleveland Arleta, and clearly before the game even kicked off, the tension was in the air. You knew if you weren't sure that league play in the West Valley kicked off, I knew it as soon as I walked in that atmosphere. The atmosphere was thick. It was tense, especially on the Cleveland side. There was of the entire team was standing on the tee in the middle of the field, sort of marking their territory. So you knew where this game was sort of headed. It was an emotional game. It was a game that both sides clearly wanted to come out and make a statement. Cleveland is a team this year that has designs on giving Birmingham and Granada a real run for their money at the top of the West Valley. Taft and their first year head coach Fred Emerson, they want to put their stamp on their regime and make a statement in the West Valley this year, and they think they can. Cleveland obviously wanted to let them know there's some time before you get there, and this game sort of played out in a way in which some people would believe that it should. Others might believe that it said more about what Taft is going to be, but let's get into it. Both teams had no problems moving the ball in the first half of this ball game. It was a little bit up and down for both teams. The difference in the game, as we'll sort of kind of get into at the end of the night, is Corey Hall is that dude. He's been that dude in the city section, not just in the West Valley, but in the city, period. And he came to play in the West Valley opener, and he had himself a night, especially in the first half. He accounted for 2 of the 3 touchdowns that Cleveland scored in the first half as they took a 21-0 lead in halftime. One of where he moss-topped the guy halfway down the field and took it in for the end zone. One of those patented Corey Hall touchdowns where he makes the circus catch and it takes it all away. Then he did what he also is known for doing, taking the ball out of the backfield, lining up at running back, getting the ball, getting off the edge, breaking 2 tackles, and then opening up that track speed and taking it all the way to the house too. And then he closed the half when Taft was driving, maybe to put points on the board potentially before halftime, and he had a big interception to kind of shut the door on the scoring opportunity at the end of the first half. But it was interesting because one of the things that has become sort of a story behind Taft in his first year is obviously some new offense they've installed. Players are sort of kind of getting used to playing certain positions. Devin Conroy is a supremely athletic and talented kid, but a first-year starter at quarterback, he's going to have his struggles. He was up and down in the first half. He missed a couple throws that could have been touchdowns, and they just couldn't sort of capitalize on what Cleveland was giving them, which led to them being down 21-0 at half. The second half started with another Corey Hall touchdown. They built the lead to 4 touchdowns, and what's commendable when you're talking about Taft is how this team all year long has sort of showed that resolve that even if they're down on the scoreboard, they're still going to give you their best effort. Even down 27-0, the team continued to fight back. They were down 34-7. They score a touchdown. They go onside kick. They recover it. They score again. They go onside kick again, recover it again. But after the referees conferred, it was close. It was bang, bang. The referees ruled that the Taft up man touched the ball 9.5 yards and not the full 10, and they awarded the ball to Cleveland. Usman Ajayi takes a screen pass to extend the lead again. Taft goes down and they score again, keeping it competitive, but it was just too little too late. They ran out of time, and Cleveland walks away with a 40-28 victory. That's just the subplot. That's just one of the plots of the game. What sort of emerged out of this game was the fact that clearly there was some feelings, there was some talk online headed into the game. Cleveland felt some type of way about the things that maybe were coming out of the Taft camp about what they felt they would do in the game. Now, when I talked to the Cleveland coaches, they downplayed it. They said, no, it wasn't that. It was just, it's kids. They're going to see things that are said online, and they're going to feel some type of way. When I talked to the Taft camp, they said they thought a lot of it was overblown. There's never anything that comes from Taft that is to put down any other teams. It's just only uplifting what we think that we can do. To me, I look at it, it's all overblown. It's rivalries. This is what makes football fun and healthy. As long as no one's throwing punches, as long as no one's getting hurt or anything is really happening that's going to be serve as a detriment to the programs or to the city section or to the kids in general. Hey, listen, I hope every week there's some sort of contention. I hope every week there's some smack talk because it should mean something. It's hard to play this game. It's hard to lace them up every week and go out there and put your body on the line. So if you need to make up something in your mind that the other team is disrespecting you or the other team needs to feel like we're not getting enough credit for what we're doing, hey, it's all good. The only thing that from my perspective and for us at VST, we want the kids to keep in mind, they keep it between the lines. No one throw hands at each other. No one be disrespectful. And at the end of the night, make sure we all show each other love. And because that's what it is at the end of the day. We all city kids at heart. So let's just keep it at that. Going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what Cleveland does from here. Last year, they got off to a hot start, but they stumbled a little bit before they got into the West Valley, and then they stumbled out of the gates in the West Valley. This year, now coming off a win of beating Taft, they've got it sort of lined up where they kind of control their destiny in terms of the things that they want to do. They've got a tough Granada team next week. They've got it lined up to where this could, if this is the team with Corey Hall, with all the pieces around him to do something special, this is the time to get it done. And it was a great statement on their part that they came into Taft, a team that has shown that they can play, that this is not the same Taft from last year, and to come in there and put together that sort of effort to win, I thought was good on their part. But also give Taft some credit. That team could have laid down when they were down big on the scoreboard, and you saw the special pieces that they have on that team that they might be able to come back and surprise some teams in the West Valley this year. So it was a great game. Taft hung tough, but Cleveland got the win to move to 1-0 to open up West Valley play.
That just makes the rest of this competition just that much more exciting. Knowing what both of these teams are going to face over the next 3 weeks as we get towards kind of crunch time. And are any of them going to play spoiler in the West Valley? That's going to be interesting. There's, 6 teams vying for that spot. And who's going to make their play? I'm going to slide into the game I was at. It was homecoming for El Camino. It was a nice little celebration. And like I said, they capped it off with a celebration at the end. But this game was an interesting kind of microcosm of what Coach Sabal at El Camino has had to deal with his whole time. They made a lot of great plays, and there were also plays that you just shake your head at, like, what is happening? And we'll fly right in. First pass completion of the game for El Camino went for 15 yards. Really nice. I mean, it was Something that they run a lot of, kind of a little comebacker, and it's one of the plays that you run to protect your quarterback. He doesn't have to make as many crazy reads, and Kevin Hawkins, the quarterback, as talented as he is, he's a sophomore. It's his first year playing at this level. So you try to protect him, and ran a little comebacker, and he hit Deion Coulter. Boom. Coulter turns, tries to make a move, and gets stripped. So fumble. And Chatsworth recovers. The question for us coming into this game is, how banged up is Isaiah Ramo? Right? He kind of went down, had that scary moment with his shoulder. Wasn't sure how, wasn't very bad at first. And, for me standing on the sidelines watching warm-ups, it didn't look like he was going to do much. He didn't do much in warm-ups, so wasn't really this big kind of show that, oh yeah, he's going to play. But Isaiah Ramo ended up doing what Isaiah Ramo does. He carried the ball 33 times for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns. But it took him a little bit to get going. That first drive, they tried to get him going. The El Camino defense did a commendable job trying to contain him. But here's the thing, right? He had 270 yards. The bulk of that came on 3 rushes, and those are Ramo's 3 touchdowns. He broke a 60-yard touchdown to get Chatsworth on the clock at the end of the first quarter, literally right after El Camino had scored. And then El Camino's line, they held him up until the 4th quarter. Yeah, they held him until the 4th quarter, and he broke 2, a 55-yarder and a 56-yarder. So if you were to look at my stat sheet for Ramo, it's a bunch of small numbers, some 0s, 2s, 1s, 3s, a 5 here and there, and then you got the 60. So, and then the 55 and the 56. If you can contain him, which is the question, how much, you could have a different kind of outcome. And for the most part, El Camino did. They got Big Jake Shirley involved early and often. He opened the scoring, caught a quick out pass, broke a couple tackles literally right in the beginning of that run, and made it 41 yards for the touchdown. The crazy thing is watching kind of how this team starts to evolve. Their running game, they're trying to figure it out. They've got a little spark plug back there, and Walker Adrian. Please correct me on that pronunciation, somebody. Put it in there in the comments phonetically how to say that, because we want to say it right. This kid's a sophomore, and he's, like I said, he's a little spark plug. Kept going. He had El Camino's second touchdown in the second quarter, and he dragged. He's not a big kid by any means of the imagination, but he darn near dragged 2 defenders into the end zone on an 11-yard touchdown. Just, they weren't stopping him from getting in. So you get to this point, second quarter's done, you're going into halftime, El Camino's up 21-6, feeling pretty good, and come out third quarter, it's kind of touch and go. Both teams kind of playing good defense. End of the third quarter, you get a Chatsworth touchdown, and here it is. Right? Chatsworth is not going to let up. Shortly after, Ramo breaks his 55-yarder, and then not long after that, he breaks a 56-yarder, and he actually gives Chatsworth the lead. It was 27-21. Ensuing kickoff, little miscommunication. They get El Camino is pinned inside their 5. And Hawkins has been running for his life for most of the game. He breaks free from the end zone. I thought they were going to get a safety. Gets the first down, and then he has another scramble after that. And he just trying to make things happen. He actually finds Caden Young for their second touchdown connection. This one, he throws it up. Young pulls it in between the defenders and just goes 70 yards. Gives El Camino the lead with 3 minutes and 31 seconds left on the clock. And this is where the excitement really kicks in. Chatsworth gets the ball back and starts running the field. And they just march, kind of methodical, getting down, run the clock out. And it looks like they get into field goal territory under 30 seconds, and it's like, okay, they're going to kick it. They get inside the 10, under 15 seconds, and like, okay, they're going to kick it. They just need a field goal to win the game. They feed Ramo, and he gets stopped at the 1-yard line as time expired. Watching it live, I thought Ramo was in. Watching my video back, as those of you who are watching this have seen now, because I'm playing it over this, his knee was down as he was stretching to break the plane. Heartbreaking way to go. After the game, though, I asked Coach Street, and he said, if he had it back again, he would have kicked the field goal. But in the moment, he's trusting his gun, trusting his guy. Give the ball to Isaiah and let him try to smash it home, because that's what he does. This time it didn't work.
I'm going to say this with all due respect. Coach Street is full of crap. He ain't doing it any different. 100 times he's lining his dog up, because that's what they teach there. That's what they teach. Full disclosure, Saturday afternoon, my kid plays youth football. We played a game at Chatsworth High School, and these dudes are in the ring going at it. I'm on the side field. I'm watching them from the stands. This is the philosophy at Chatsworth. No surrender, no retreat. They're going to come at you. Yes, in hindsight, you go kick that field goal. And I'm sure they probably wish, because it's way better to be 1-0 in the West Valley than to be 0-1, right? We know that. I'm not an idiot. I understand that. But when you look at what this program has been and what they're building and the way they want to be bullies and the way they want to finish, this is what they do. There's no hesitation. You get down inside the 5 and you put the rock in 23's hand and you let him go and get you that dub. That's what they do. And I wouldn't expect anything less from Coach Street's team. So, it's unfortunate. The knee was just down. I wish the knee was slightly down in the Notre Dame Ohio State game, but that's another story for another day. But it was 6 inches away from finishing that game off. But hey, listen, that's the game, right? You can't coach scared. You have to coach the way that you think that your team can win. And that's the way that they wanted to approach that game. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough to lose a game by a point, and hindsight is always 2020. But listen, Chatsworth is going to be Chatsworth. That's what they do. They're going to keep punching at you until that final whistle. This time it didn't work out. I mean, like I said, if Isaiah Remo was 2 inches taller and that knee doesn't touch the ground, we having a different conversation. But hey, listen, that's just how it goes sometimes, man. It was an exciting game. It said, like I said, that game said more about who Chatsworth is than Elko, because even if he scores there, that was still an impressive effort by Elko. It's just, you know, Chatsworth is always going to punch their way back into a game. It's just how it goes, man. And it didn't work out this time, but I don't believe Street. 100 times over, he's putting that ball in 23's hands and saying, "Go get me that dub, man." That's what they do. I wouldn't expect anything less from them.
You know, and I've actually said this to pretty much everybody. If you have beast mode on your team, you give the ball to beast mode. That's why all of us were pissed when the Seahawks passed at the goal line instead of giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch. I will forever go back to that, because when you got beast mode, you feed him. And
But there are other times we need to feed beast mode, and other times we need to just kick the field goal.
yes,
That's true too. Listen,
And that's why they lost this game.
yeah. Listen, I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that at all. I'm just saying coaches are going to stick to what they know, right? Look at everybody's mad at Ron Rivera because he didn't go for 2 down on the goal line. Sometimes you got to, and which was unlike him, right? To not try to win the game when they were playing Philly, when the Eagles were playing the Commanders, and he had a chance to kind of step on their neck, and he played for overtime instead of going for the kill. Listen, sometimes you just go with what you go for what you know, and Street would rather put the ball in Rameau's hands than to take a chance on the snap of the hold and the kick going down, when I guess Rameau has been a sure thing, like you talked about. He'll go for nothing 60. That's his guy, man. So listen, he felt his running back was the sure thing. Like I said, hindsight is 2020. Kick that damn field goal and take that 1-0 in the West Valley. But hey, man, you live by the sword, you die by it too, I guess.
Yeah. It was pandemonium as that clock hit 0. El Camino was celebrating and Chatsworth was dejected. That's what happens. Kaylie, is there anything else you want to add? Because I know you joined me at the end. You got to see how it wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would add is by the time I was there, Elko had turned it back on again, and they weren't trying to lose their homecoming game, and that was quite obvious. But I know that they blew a pretty big lead there for a little bit until they were able to come back and snag the W in the end.
And good for Big Jake, man.
So tighten up, I guess. That's all I have to say. Tighten up.
And good for Big Jake. And good for Big Jake getting that dub on his last homecoming game. He better been the homecoming king too. Oh, so I don't know what y'all doing at that school, because there's no more alpha than he is. But anyway,
I don't think he was running. He wasn't among the nominees in the court when they announced it. So
that's because he's got better things to do than be worried about homecoming. I'm just saying you should have made him homecoming king anyway. I don't care.
Hey,
Big Jake, Big Jake runs the show around there.
He had a hell of a homecoming game. He caught 6 balls, 101 yards. He had the opening touchdown. So, he kept giving us reasons to say his name. And I'm telling you guys, though, right here, right now, and I think I've said it before, but I'm going to reaffirm it right now. Kevin Hawkins, when this kid figures out that he's a good quarterback, he's going to be something special.
He's going to be a problem in the West Valley.
Yes.
He's going to be a problem.
He's athletic enough to escape pressure. If he can get a little more protection and cut out the happy feet, which, I mean, all young quarterbacks have happy feet.
He's a sophomore. Yeah.
But if he gets a little more protection, keeps his eyes downfield without the happy feet, this kid is going to make a lot of noise as a junior and senior. Mark my words. Speaking of a sophomore that we expected to make a lot of noise as a junior and senior, over at Birmingham, there's a certain junior who's the quarterback, and things have not kind of gone the way we all expected this season. Yes, Birmingham had the big win, 31-0, but there was an underlying moment with their quarterback incumbent. Kaylie, take it away.
Yeah, so I've been following Birmingham quite a bit this season. I've already been to a handful of their games, and it was pretty obvious early on. I think it was the most prevalent in their game against Notre Dame that Kingston's been having issues. Kingston Tisdale, their quarterback, but it's a big difference from what we saw from him last season. In their game last weekend against Granada, it was really clear even in the first quarter that he was struggling to get the ball off. There was a lot of passes thrown out of bounds. And their strongest offensively was Ronell Hewitt. He had some serious yardage for the Patriots. And eventually Javen Hall ended up scoring their first touchdown. So they opened up the scoreboard that game, and they ended that first quarter up by 1 touchdown and an extra point to Granada. In the second quarter, Granada really turned up the heat. You know, they were like, Birmingham's defense is second to none. They have great defense, but Granada was pushing back just as hard in the second quarter. Oliver Taylor and Kanye Martin put up a really good defensive front, but their offense, when they got the ball, was a little bit too predictable. They weren't able to get any points on the board because Birmingham always knew it was coming and was always able to defend against it. And meanwhile, Javen Hall was doing numbers for Birmingham still, and he was able to get them another touchdown in the second quarter, so that put them up 2 scores. And then in the second half, you know, we've seen games where things have been close and Granada's been able to come back and, you know, like show out and show us that they are the tough team that we've seen last year especially and early on this season. But their defense had the potential in the second half to hold off Birmingham and allow their offense to do what they do best. But they ran out of steam too quickly and they got really lazy. This left a lot of room for Birmingham to score, and it was just even more so discouraging for Granada's offense because the wider that gap got, you could just visually see they were hanging their heads more and they were becoming very discouraged by the obvious win that Birmingham had, and especially when they started stealing it away after they put up 31 unanswered. The refs were also, though, missing like obvious penalties. I'm not sure how much that impacted the outcome of the game. I think Birmingham probably would have won regardless. But the absolute shutout, I could understand, was extremely frustrating, and you could see that frustration on the field. This caused like some very apparent physical friction between the two teams and eventually led to an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Birmingham just took advantage of Granada's deterioration. They ended up scoring 2 more TDs and a field goal, and that's what ultimately ended the game at 31-0.
I'll just say, you know, when things start to get out of hand, you expect that chippiness to come, and you know, not to really knock on the officials, right? Because these are people who are doing it for not the money, for sure, for the love of the game and the kids. But you expect them to kind of keep the game under control and keep things in hand, because when it starts to get out of hand is when you get that kind of chippiness, and you just hope someone doesn't get hurt. And thankfully, nobody did.
Yeah, well, again, it's almost akin to what I was talking about with Cleveland and Taft. Is like there's emotion tied to these games. There's always emotion tied for Birmingham because everybody's coming for you. Everybody's coming for your neck. every week. This is the week that someone's going to knock you off. This is the week that you get knocked from your perch. It's just the area they live in. And when you're Granada and you've been on that doorstep for a couple of years now, you've been close. You've been the team sort of earmarked as the ones who are going to knock them down the peg, and it starts to sort of unravel. That's where that powder keg of emotion, and then you start feeling like you jobbed a bit by the refs, and yeah, it can kind of mount up. It's just one of those things. It's like, it's unfortunate because the Granada is a great team. They've got talent. It's just the way they're built, especially offensively. This is not a team that's built to chase the game. It's just now their one dimension is better than most other people's one dimension. Pick a dimension. It's better than most people. The way that they block up front, the way that they run the ball. But when you run into a team like Birmingham, who is built to stop anything that anybody throws at them, and you find it hard to kind of put points on the board, once you're trailing the game, it's hard to come from behind. So I think Granada still is going to be, they're still, to me, the number 2 team in that league until Cleveland knocks them off. But, we were hoping to see them maybe be able to be the team that kind of knock off Birmingham, but Birmingham came out and made the statement that they're still the Kings until further notice.
Yeah.
They still run the show.
That's apparent after that, and it'll kind of be a weekly thing over the next few weeks. There's really no major cupcakes in the West Valley. Street at Chatsworth isn't a powerhouse program, but watch out, because remote can drop on you at any time, and if you're not ready, that defense can shut you down. So, and even El Camino, with a younger program and all their inconsistencies, if you're not ready for them, they can do stuff. So yeah, the West Valley is far from easy for anyone, and Birmingham, just if they keep pushing and plugging, they know what they're trying to keep up. They haven't lost in the city section in like 6 years. So,
and just one quick note.
Mhm.
I know Javen Hall got the bulk of the snaps, and Kingston Tisdale had to kind of take a back seat. Hopefully this is a moment the young man takes in as a learning and a teaching moment, that, nothing is a birthright. Everything is earned. And sometimes you're going to hit these moments of adversity. He is obviously a tremendously talented young man. And the struggles have been real this year, because last year nobody saw you coming. This year everybody's got tape. So it's going to feel a little different. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to sort of navigate when you're the guy and much is expected of you. So hopefully he takes what had happened in this game not as the team sort of casting you aside, but as the team kind of letting you know, like, we need more. We need you to kind of dial in. We need you to bring the maturity level up. We need you to sort of kind of lead this thing the right way. So hopefully he takes that challenge on, and we get more and we get better from Kingston Tisdale down the stretch of the season when his opportunity with his numbers called to play.
Yeah. All that actually, I don't really have much else to add on that. Kaylie, is there anything else you'd like to add to either Birmingham, Granada?
I just want to give a huge shout out to both teams' defensive efforts. I mean, this game was definitely defined by the defensive fronts of both teams, and I don't think that this game was a matter of offensive talent at all, because besides like Javen Hall and maybe like Ronell Hewitt, we really didn't see a ton of offensive miracles being played here. So huge shout out to both teams' defense. You guys determined the game.
Anytime you hold one team to 0, that's gonna talk about one defense. And like you said, the Granada defense for most of the game was holding tough. On that note, Bruno, switch gears to our next and talk about our player of the week. This kid, it's his first time getting player of the week this season, but he is someone that we have a hard time ignoring as a staff. He's done some amazing things. And I'm going to let Kenny take it and just give the full breakdown.
Yeah, man. Corey Hall is our player of the week this week. It was the way you wanted to see the young man start his final foray into the West Valley slate. He went on the road at Taft. His team needed him to be dominant, and dominate is what he did. 3 touchdowns, 2 receiving, 1 on the ground. He could have had more, but had one, at least 1, maybe 2 that were called back on holding penalties, or else he really could have had a whale of a day. Had an interception that kind of shut the door on the scoring opportunity at the end of the first half. The young man was balling. We expect these sort of things from Corey Hall. As we always say, Corey Hall doing Corey Hall things. And tonight was another, Friday night was another one of those seminal moments in this young man's career where he kind of put the team on his back and led him to victory in a tough environment against a tough team. So Corey Hall is the player of the week.
Congratulations, Mr. Corey Hall. I've got 2 honorable mentions before we wrap up. I just talked about him. Jake Shirley had his 6 catches, 101 yards, and Isaiah Ramon showing that he can still, even if he doesn't have his full health physically, which I think he is now, he went 33 carries, 270 yards. So both of those guys definitely are people that put their team on their back. So honorable mention to them. Kaylie, do you have any honorable mentions outside of the defensive?
Yeah, I want to give Javen Hall his flowers. Honorable mention to Javen Hall for sure. He showed that why he earned that spot on that Birmingham team, and he really demonstrated the talent that he has to bring to that offense. So honorable mention to Javen Hall.
Right.
And one other young man, honorable mention from that Taft Cleveland game, Michael Mansoret. He's a name that doesn't get mentioned a lot because of Taft. Taft is an air raid offense, and they throw the ball around a lot, but the young man had 200 yards on the ground and really sort of kind of fortified Taft when they needed him, when they needed to stabilize the game, when it felt like Cleveland might run away with it. So I want to throw that young man's name out too. He kind of put Taft on his back until the quarterback sort of kind of figured it out later on in the game. Michael Mansoret with his 200 yards on the ground. Big Mike, we see you. We salute you too, young man.
All right. And on that note, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for supporting, and we'll keep doing it. Keep your eyes out for our preview dropping this week. There's some more really exciting matchups coming up, and visit the website, read the articles. We got some reporters doing some great things. Really trying to put the shine on these kids. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. It's all about love, and that's all we're trying to push out. And while you're at it, like Kenny always says, hit that notification button so you can get that little ping when you know we're dropping this. Because we're bringing these fast and furious, trying to keep it going and just grow and give you guys more content.
Yeah, man. We love and support you. We love the support we get from you guys. Follow us on our socials as well. We got banging content from Kaylie and Arshavir and our photographer. So thank you guys. We love you. See y'all next time. Peace.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, there's no excuse for you guys to not be packing out these stadiums, whether it's home or away. Last Friday, I was able to make it to 2 different games, and they were only 20 minutes apart. And I could have made it to Taft too if I would have driven another 7 minutes. So you guys have no excuses to not be supporting your teams, home or away. And with that, thank you for those of you who are already supporting and who are already showing the love that these kids deserve. Peace. We'll see you next week.